Ayomide stood outside the courtroom in Abuja, under the hot sun, for 9 long hours. She had not eaten, not even taken a sip of water. Her eyes were tired, but she refused to sit or rest. She just stood there, frozen in pain and hope. People walked past her. Some looked at her with pity, others whispered behind her back. But Ayomide didn't hear them. She was too focused, too scared, too desperate. In one hand, she held her late husband's wedding ring, her fingers shaking slightly. In the other, she gripped a medical report, old, torn, but still carrying the truth. Her heart was heavy, but she had no choice. This was the day everything could change. For months, she had been fighting quietly. Her in-laws wanted to take her son, her only child, away from her. They said she didn't belong, that she wasn't good enough, that she was just a poor woman who married into a rich family. But that wasn't true. Ayomide loved her husband, and he loved her. They built a life together. But after he died, everything changed. Now, a judge would decide if she was fit to be a mother. Ayomide prayed, not for revenge, not for money, but just to keep her son. She whispered over and over, "Please, let them see the truth. Let them see I'm his mother." As the minutes turned into hours, she didn't move. She was afraid that if she left, she would miss the moment justice arrived. So she waited, in silence, in pain, and with all the strength she had left, because her son was worth every second. 5 years ago, Ayomide was just a regular woman living a simple life. She never imagined she would fall in love with someone like Tajuddin, a successful, kind, and humble neurosurgeon. They met at a community health event where Ayomide was volunteering. While others ignored her, Tajuddin noticed her gentle spirit. He didn't care about her background or her clothes. He said he saw something special in her: honesty, warmth, and strength. Tajuddin came from a very rich Yoruba family. His parents believed he should marry someone from a wealthy or popular family, not someone like Ayomide who didn't have much. They called her ordinary and below their level, but Tajuddin didn't care. He told Ayomide that love wasn't about class or money, it was about the heart. So they got married in secret, quietly, without the big celebration his parents had dreamed of. They moved into a small apartment and built a beautiful, peaceful life together. Soon, they were blessed with a baby boy, Tobiloba. Tajuddin loved his son deeply. He would rush home from the hospital just to rock Tobiloba to sleep. Their small family was filled with laughter, love, and late-night talks. Ayomide thought their bond could never break, but life had other plans. One rainy evening, Tajuddin was called into the hospital for an emergency surgery. He never made it there. His car crashed on the expressway. He died before anyone could reach him. Ayomide's world shattered. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't sleep. Her son was just 2 years old when he lost his father. Before Ayomide could even finish mourning, Tajuddin's family showed up. They didn't come to comfort her. They didn't cry. Instead, they blamed her for his death and accused her of trapping him with a child. They said she wasn't part of their family and didn't deserve to raise Tobiloba. Without warning, they began a legal fight to take him away from her. Just like that, the love that had changed her life became the reason she was now fighting to keep her son. After Tajuddin's sudden death, Ayomide thought his family would support her, or at least give her space to grieve. But she was wrong, very wrong. Just days after the funeral, they showed their true colors. His mother looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You were never one of us." The warmth Ayomide once hoped to feel from them turned into cold hate. They called her a gold digger, saying she only married Tajuddin for money. They said she didn't belong in their rich family. But what hurt Ayomide the most was when they said she was not fit to be a mother. Tajuddin's family filed a case in court. They wanted full custody of Tobiloba. They claimed Ayomide was mentally unstable, dangerous, and poor. They brought fake documents, showing medical reports that Ayomide had been in a psychiatric hospital. But it was all lies. They even paid people to act as witnesses, people Ayomide had never met, standing in court, saying things that weren't true. Slowly, her world began to fall apart. Her neighbors stopped talking to her. Her church friends avoided her. Some believed the lies. Others were just scared to be involved. Even her lawyer, the only person who had promised to fight for her, gave up the case and walked away. She was alone, completely alone. Every night, she would sit in her small living room, holding her son's baby clothes, whispering to herself, "He's all I have left." She didn't cry in front of Tobiloba. She smiled, cooked, and played with him. But after he slept, the tears would come. She wasn't fighting for pride. She wasn't fighting for revenge. She was fighting for her child, the last piece of Tajuddin she had. The court battles were long and heavy. Sometimes she didn't have enough money to eat or even get transport to court, but she never missed a hearing. Every time the judge looked at her, she stood tall, even though her legs shook. People mocked her. They called her foolish for trying, but she kept going. She had lost her husband. She had lost friends. She had lost respect, but she refused to lose her son, even if it meant losing herself in the process. Ayomide swore she would not stop, because when the world turned its back on her, Tobiloba still reached for her hand, and that was all the reason she needed. One cold evening, after another long and painful day at court, Ayomide sat alone in her small apartment. Her son, Tobiloba, was asleep beside her, holding her finger like he always did. She was tired of fighting, tired of crying, tired of being alone. She didn't know how much longer she could go on. Then suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. No name, no text, just a voice recording. At first, she was scared. Her hands shook as she pressed play. But the moment she heard the voice, her heart stopped. It was Temilade, her late husband's younger sister. In the recording, Temilade was speaking to someone, her voice full of guilt and worry. She admitted everything, how she and her mother forged the fake medical papers, how they paid people to lie in court, how they wanted to make Ayomide look crazy so they could take Tobiloba. "I don't know if I can live with this secret," Temilade said in the recording. "What we did to Ayomide was wrong. She loved my brother, and she didn't deserve this." Ayomide dropped the phone. Her heart was racing. After all the lies, all the pain, this one message was her light in the dark. Someone believed her now. Someone knew the truth. The message ended with a quiet whisper. "This doesn't erase your pain, but it might help you fight." With new hope, Ayomide searched for help again. She found a young lawyer named Chimamaka who worked with women like her for free, a pro bono lawyer. Chimamaka listened to the voice note, read Ayomide's story, and without thinking twice said, "Let's fight this together." For the first time in months, Ayomide smiled with real hope. She wasn't alone anymore. She had proof. She had a strong woman by her side. And most importantly, she had a chance, a real chance, to get her son back and clear her name. The war wasn't over, but finally, she had a weapon, and this time, she was ready. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy. Every eye was on Chimamaka, Ayomide's new lawyer. She stood tall, calm, but her words were sharp like a knife. One by one, she tore apart the lies Ayomide's in-laws had built. She pointed at the forged documents and explained how they were fake. She played the voice message of Temilade for the judge and everyone to hear. The courtroom was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. Temilade's voice filled the room, confessing how she and her mother lied to destroy Ayomide. Ayomide wasn't inside. She sat on a bench outside the court, holding her hands tight, her heart beating fast. She didn't know what was happening inside, but she was praying silently. Her eyes stared at the door, waiting, hoping. Back inside, Chimamaka had one more surprise. She called a new witness, someone nobody expected. Tajuddin's best friend walked into the room. He greeted the judge and held up a paper. It was Tajuddin's original will. He told the court that before Tajuddin died, he had made him promise to protect Ayomide and Tobiloba. Then he read the part of the will that shocked everyone. Tajuddin had clearly written that Ayomide should be the only guardian of their son if anything ever happened to him. Gasps filled the courtroom. Even the judge leaned forward. For months, Ayomide's in-laws had claimed that Tajuddin would never want her to raise his son. But now, his own handwriting said otherwise. The judge looked serious. He picked up the documents and said, "We need a recess. This court will take a short break before continuing." People started whispering. The truth had come like lightning, and it shook everyone. But Ayomide still didn't know. She sat outside, still praying. Her eyes were tired, but her spirit was holding on. She didn't know Chimamaka had shaken the whole courtroom. She didn't know that her late husband's best friend had stood up for her. She didn't know that the truth she had carried in her heart for so long, was finally being heard. She just sat there, with a small tear rolling down her cheek. A tear of hope, a tear of fear, waiting to be called in. After 9 long, painful hours of waiting, the big wooden doors of the courtroom slowly opened. Ayomide looked up quickly, her heart beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. Chimamaka, her brave lawyer, stepped out quietly. She didn't rush. She didn't speak. She just looked at Iamide with calm, soft eyes and gave a small, gentle nod. That nod said everything. Iamide's body couldn't hold itself anymore. Her knees gave way, and she dropped to the ground, but this time, it wasn't from fear or sadness. It was from deep, overwhelming relief. Her hands covered her face, and the tears poured out like rain. But these were not tears of pain. These were tears of victory, of freedom, of justice finally choosing her. People walking by stopped and stared, confused. Some thought something bad had happened, but Chimamaka walked over, knelt beside her and whispered, "You did it, Iamide. He's yours. You're taking Tobaloba home." Iamide's sobs grew louder, but now there was a smile through the tears. The same court that once felt like a mountain standing against her had finally heard her, believed her, chose her. For months she had been called names. She had been laughed at, accused, and almost destroyed. Her husband's family tried everything to break her. Fake papers, lies, even shame. And yet, she stayed strong. Not for revenge, not for pride, but for the little boy who called her mummy. And now, that little boy, her Tobaloba, was finally coming back to her arms, back to the warm love that only a mother could give. People who once ignored her were now watching with respect. Even the security guard who had looked at her with pity earlier now gave her a small salute. Iamide looked up at the sky, still crying, and whispered, "Thank you," not just to God, but to her late husband, to the unknown angel who sent the voice message, and to every small strength that kept her going. She didn't win because she was powerful. She won because she didn't give up. And sometimes, that is the greatest power of all. Even though Iamide had won the case, there was no dancing or shouting, no loud celebration. She didn't jump with joy or call anyone to brag. Instead, she sat alone in the corner of her small room, holding Tobaloba's toy in her hands. Her eyes were tired, and her smile was weak, like someone who had just come back from a long, painful war. Yes, she had won. Yes, her son was finally coming back home. But inside her heart, she felt heavy, like the victory had cost her everything. She had cried too many nights. She had begged, suffered, and stood alone while others laughed or turned their backs on her. She had to fight for something that was already hers, her own son. "Why did I have to fight so hard?" she whispered to herself. "Why did they try to take him? Why didn't anyone believe me? It didn't feel fair. It didn't feel right." She didn't ask for riches. She didn't want anything from them. All she ever wanted was to raise her son in peace. But they made her life a battlefield. She looked around the quiet room. No one was there to hug her. No one came to say, "Congratulations." Even the friends who once smiled with her had disappeared during the hard times. Victory felt lonely. It felt cold. But just as her tears started again, she remembered something. She closed her eyes and saw Tajuddin, her late husband, smiling softly the way he used to. She remembered his voice, calm and loving, saying, "No matter what happens, protect our boy." Those words stayed with her like a blanket on a cold night. They gave her the strength to wipe her tears, stand up, and start preparing for her son's return. This wasn't just about winning in court. It was about keeping a promise to the man she loved. It was about being strong for Tobaloba. And even if no one cheered for her, she knew deep inside she had done the right thing. She didn't fight for pride. She fought for love. And that kind of victory, even if quiet, is the loudest kind of all. 1 month after winning the hardest battle of her life, Iamide did something unexpected. She didn't rest. She didn't disappear quietly. Instead, she stood up and decided to use her pain for a purpose. She remembered how lost and helpless she felt during the court case, how no one wanted to help her, how even her own lawyer walked away, and how the lies nearly destroyed her. She knew there were other women out there, just like her, fighting alone, afraid and ignored. That thought refused to leave her heart. So, with nothing but strong will and a dream, Iamide started a small project from her tiny living room. She called it Mothers Without Defense. At first, it was just her and a borrowed phone. She reached out to other widows and single mothers who were facing false accusations, being bullied by in-laws, or struggling to keep their children. She shared her story and listened to theirs. She cried with them. She told them they were not alone anymore. Then something surprising happened. An anonymous donor, someone she never met, someone who never gave a name, sent money to support her dream. That money helped her rent a small office, print flyers, and hire 2 kind-hearted lawyers who believed in her vision. Within weeks, her little project became something powerful. Newspapers started calling, radio stations wanted interviews, women from all over the country sent messages, asking for help, or just saying thank you. Ayamide didn't expect fame. She didn't want attention. She just wanted to make sure no woman would ever go through what she went through, not in silence, not without help. The same woman who once had no money, no lawyer, and no support, now had a strong voice, and she used that voice to lift others up. She never found out who the donor was. Maybe it was someone touched by her story. Maybe it was someone who had also once been saved. But Ayomide didn't need to know. She only knew one thing. Her pain had become a purpose. Her tears had built something strong. And every time she saw a mother smile after winning her own battle, she felt something deeper than happiness. She felt fulfilled. At a charity gala, many months after her victory, Ayomide sat quietly at her table, watching other guests laugh, talk, and eat. The room was filled with lights, music, and camera flashes. But Ayomide's heart was calm. This event was for her foundation, the one helping women like her. She had come a long way, and she was proud, but nothing prepared her for what happened next. As a speaker ended their speech and the guests clapped, Ayomide suddenly froze. A voice from the back of the room had said something, soft but clear. It was the same voice that had sent her that voice message, the one that exposed the truth, the one that changed everything. Her heart began to race. She stood up quickly, turned around, and searched the room with her eyes. But no one was there. The voice had disappeared into the crowd. Confused, she looked around and slowly sat back down. Then she noticed something she hadn't seen before. On her chair, tucked under her napkin, was a small folded note. Her hands trembled a little as she opened it. The handwriting was neat and careful. It read, "Truth always finds a way to reach those brave enough to believe in it." She held the note to her chest and closed her eyes. A soft smile spread across her face. Not a big one, but the kind that came from deep inside. That person, whoever they were, had changed her life. They didn't want praise or thanks. They just wanted to help. They didn't just give her justice. They gave her something bigger, the strength to believe in herself again. Ayomide didn't need to find them anymore. The mystery didn't matter. What mattered was that someone believed in her when the whole world turned away. And because of that one voice, Ayomide was now able to help hundreds of other women find their voices too. Ayomide used to stand outside courtrooms all alone, scared and tired, hoping for justice to find her. Now, she walks into those same courtrooms with confidence and pride. She's no longer just fighting for herself. She fights for thousands of women whose voices have been ignored. Her son, Tobiloba, is growing strong and happy. He calls her his warrior mother because she fought so hard to protect him. Every time Ayomide walks past the courthouse, she remembers how lonely and hopeless she once felt. But today, she sees something different. One day, she noticed a woman standing outside the court, just like she used to, waiting and praying, scared and tired. Ayomide's heart went out to her. Without hesitation, Ayomide walked up to the woman, looked into her eyes, and said gently, "Don't give up. I waited 9 hours too, and it changed everything." The woman's face softened, hope shining through her tears. Ayomide knows that many women are still fighting battles like hers, but now she is a symbol of hope, a proof that no matter how hard it gets, justice can come. She no longer stands alone. She walks with millions who believe in her cause and find strength in her story. Her journey from a desperate mother outside that courtroom to a fearless fighter inside it shows that one person's courage can change many lives. Ayomide's story reminds us all, even in the darkest moments, hope can rise, and a single voice can make the world listen. If you believe every mother deserves justice, share Ayomide's story now. Tag someone who needs hope today, and let's stand together for those still waiting outside the courtroom doors. Don't let their fight go unheard, because sometimes all it takes is one voice to change everything. Share this and be that voice.